Crazy Taxi is one of my favorite arcade games of all time. Released by Sega in 1999 and in 2000 on the Sega Dreamcast, adding an entire extra map and cool minigames that teach you while challenging you to master the gameplay. It's a rare case of the home port actually being better than the original version, and easily one of the best Dreamcast games to come out, and one of the best selling. The 360 received a port, and that is the version I used to review, but the core gameplay remains the same. And it's just pure arcadey fun. Set against a timer, you are tasked with picking up passengers and then delivering them to their chosen locations. Depending on how crazy you drive and how many stunts you pull off, you receive extra tips. The faster you're able to arrive at your location, the more bonus time you are awarded. And that's it. Seemingly simple, but actually quite deep. Mainly because the stunts you pull off and the driving techniques are fairly complex. In order to get anywhere fast, you have to master a boost that involves shifting into the drive gear while then pressing the gas at just the right moment. Boosting will not only double your speed, but allow you to get insane air. You also need to master a drift move by pressing both of the shift buttons and performing a hard turn at just the right time. Meanwhile, your passenger screams like a crazy person and praises your death-defying driving, and I can only imagine the Yelp reviews these psychos would leave. Chose the Crazy Taxi because I needed to get across town in 30 seconds. My driver was an absolute crackhead, and he caused multiple accidents and crashes. Nearly killed me. I loved it. 5 stars. To this day, I cannot drive by a KFC or Pizza Hut parking lot while listening to Bad Religion without at least slightly imagining myself doing a 70-mile-an-hour power slide into the parking lot, sideways, on 2 wheels. I know it's crazy, but so is the amount of fun and replayability this game contains. So what do you get when you remove the cool music and real-world locations? Because that's what the Xbox 360 port had to do. Licensing had expired on all the various elements, so they stripped them out and replaced them with generic locations and a new soundtrack. And the short answer is, it's still Crazy Taxi, and it's still fun, but it's not quite the same. As far as the 360 port goes, it's pretty bare bones. Nothing was really improved, except the resolution, which looks upscaled and it could be a lot better. One of my main issues is that the visual options are lacking. You can simply stretch the screen, something I usually tend to avoid doing, or play in the original format, but with a loud, annoying yellow background. So I mostly played with the screen stretched. It looks okay in this case, luckily. Also, the sound balance seems off. On the default, the effects drown out the music, so unless you love loud screaming and crashing to be constantly assaulting your speakers, go for it. Otherwise, I recommend cutting the music up and the sound effects down. But now there are leaderboards and achievements at least. So the 360 version seems like a straight up Dreamcast port, and doesn't really improve upon the graphics. It was really impressive at the time, but you'll definitely have seen better games nowadays. There's a lot of pop-up, and I feel like the developers could have given the game a bit of an upgrade with the increased horsepower of the Xbox 360. But it's fine. It's a very fun game and perfect for quick sessions. Over the years, it's a game that I've always returned to play, and I've always enjoyed it. Even with years of practice, I am far from an expert in it. But that's what makes a truly great arcade game. Presenting the player with a concept that is easy to grasp, but hard to master. I will say that the driving is really touchy, and it's always been that way. You can adapt to it, but dodging traffic can be near impossible as you barrel down the street at full speed. You get bonuses for passing between cars, but wrecking will stop your combo. So you can choose, drive normal speed and avoid all the cars, or just floor it and boost a lot and hope for the best. I tend to adopt the latter technique because ultimately saving time is more important than boosting your score to me. But I'm sure there's some crazy taxi freaks out there that can boost, drive, and still dodge all the cars. The arcade game has a steering wheel, shifter, and pedals. It's actually a bit harder because of that, and the boost and drift techniques are hard to pull off as well. As much as I like the arcade hardware, most of my experience comes from playing with a controller. Crazy Taxi isn't perfect, but it's still one of my favorite games of all time. Endlessly replayable and tons of fun. It's good for a 10-minute play or an hour. There are no cutscenes, there's no story. You press play and you go. Like any good arcade game, it challenges you but rewards you at the same time for improving. It looks like a game from 1999, but it plays just as good as any arcade racing game, and none of them seem to really replicate the gameplay loop. It's unique in that regard, even though there have been a few attempts at copying it, and even a couple sequels. I miss The Offspring and Bad Religion, and I also miss the name brand restaurants and storefronts because they added an element of realism to what is otherwise an insanely comical game. I have to knock the port for lacking these elements that made the original game so special, but I still have no problem recommending it, and I'm glad that it exists. It's a fine addition to anyone's library. Final score, 85. Challenging but rewarding and fun gameplay. Large maps and training modes. Touchy driving, lazy port, missing aesthetic elements and music.